24-hour access to Planet Fitness.
All right, here we go, man. So we got a real interesting show today. Obviously, before I preface the particular topic that we're going to talk about, I want to say something about motivation, goals, and self-preservation. this is an important topic to talk about before we talk about the main subject that we have going on, which is Frank Warren suing Turki El-Sheikh. And by the way, also, UFC needs some American stars. So that is the theme that we are going to talk about, okay? So you got to understand something. When you have a goal, nobody knows what it takes to reach that goal more than you do. Other people can give you advice. Other people can suggest. Other people can give explanations or some sort of theories as how they're going to get there, but only you know how to get there. And the problem is, too many people listen to other people that either don't know what they're talking about or don't have their best interests at heart, okay? Now, I'll give you an example. Right now, I come across this story with Frank Warren being, well, Frank Warren suing Turki El-Sheikh for $1 billion, right? And I thought to myself, well, is this really a big story to get to? Well, right now, not so much, but as time goes on and as time permits, it's going to metastasize into a bigger story. And it is going to capture the interest of many people out there, in particular because of this Conor Benn and Dana White Zuffa boxing situation going on. I thought to myself, you know what? There's a group of these people that are basically asking, you know, hey, can you help me with this? Can you do that? This and that. I had to say no. I'm like, listen, I have this live stream to get to, and I figured, you know what? This right here is a little bit more important, right? I got to ride this wave that I got going on. I got to try to build a buzz. And then you got an idiot right here talking about, oh, this live sucks, but then comes in here and it doesn't matter. You get put in a shadow realm. Off you go. I don't need you in my life. You don't have a name. You don't have a profile. You don't have any motion going on. Let me give you the run through of the reality in your life. You don't have $5,000 in your bank account. You got your check engine lights on. You got debt high up to the ceiling, and you got medical bills because you're a fat ass that can't, you know, freaking learn how to exercise or diet correctly. So boom, there you go. You lose, I win. I'm a winner in life. You're just a watcher. You're just a viewer. And that's really all there is that it comes down to. Shout out to Marty Miller. I see your comment. He says, you've been on fire lately, man. He says, I don't know why you always start before you're ready, though. Once again, I need you to understand, I get that that's a frustrating point for you, but you also have to understand there's a strategy behind that, and for one reason or another, it may not be something that you understand, nor is it something that I could really talk about in public, okay? But rest assured and understand there's a method and a strategy behind it. You just may not understand it, but inshallah, one day you might. He says, so many people come and leave. Here's the thing, right? People come and leave in live chats anyway. That's the point of it. If they come, great. It's views on views anyway, right? If you come in here for a least amount of 30 seconds, you've already given me views. But, you know, with the watch time, you know, I have enough loyal listeners like yourself and many others that will stay for a while to sort of, you know, hear the rest of the story, and we'll build up the time hours that come into my streams. But on any regard, I need you guys to understand, right? You have to work for your own best interest. That is the main thing that I need you to understand, right? The promoters are out for themselves. The fighters are out for themselves. The audience are out for themselves. And guess what? In this world of YouTube MMA and YouTube boxing, the streamers are out for themselves. And you need to understand that. I'm out for myself. Okay, you need to understand that. However, I do understand there is a certain level of loyalty that you have to exhibit, especially to those that have been loyal to you for a long time, right? That's why to the loyal listeners, I give them moderator positions in the chat, right? They help out with the chat. They are big supporters, and I reward them with that. And just like in real life, if you were a friend of mine in real life and I knew you in real life and we are down ass homies, you better believe I will ride with you till the sun comes up, and there's nobody that's going to stop me from going after, you know, anybody that goes after you or goes after me or goes after anybody that's in our squad, and that's on everything. So that's what it is, right? That's what it is by the end of the day. John Dong says, with a hi, I guess, with the emoji of the 5 fingers in the air. Shout out to you on that. So once again, I need you guys to understand everybody is out for themselves, right? Nobody is friends, right? At least not in the world of YouTube, right? In real life, it's a little bit different, but in the world of YouTube, it is a cutthroat world, just like the fight world is a cutthroat world. Politics is a cutthroat world. The corporate world is a cutthroat world. The streets are a cutthroat world. And this is the lesson that we're going to learn from this particular live stream, in particular when we talk about Frank Warren and Turki El-Sheikh. Album says, that beard is crazy. I got to give you my props. Thank you, my man. You know, that's a very positive thing for you to say thank you. Unfortunately, there are some people that come in here, but you know what? I don't know. This is what I'm going to do, right? I'm not going to give any time to any idiots that say anything negative or anything like that. And also, here's another thing I need you guys to understand as moderators, right? I need you to also watch some of the negative things that you say. I understand that some of you want to be groundbreaking. Some of you want to say things that, you know, are the truth or that are out there. But you also have to understand there's reputational value that you have to uphold as well. So please cool down your astute observation. Okay, that's the best way to pull it. Cool 600 says, are you Muslim? Yes, I am. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you. If you are a Muslim, let me know what part of the world you are from. Cool 600, first time I've seen you here. Mario Dillion, one of my regulars in here that I haven't seen in a while. Shout out to you. He says, Dana is stupid for signing Conor Benn. And you know what? He's facing a lot of backlash for that, right? In particular with Sean O'Malley. But here's what I got to say about Sean O'Malley. Mario DeLeon says fighters might revolt. I don't know about that. That's actually far-fetched of a reality that's never going to happen, because here's the thing about it, right? The UFC has a leverage in terms of those 3 letters. Now, ever since that the UFC came to fruition, right, the UFC letters has a certain amount of power. That power that those letters have exhibit violence. They exhibit something that is exotic. They exhibit something that is, well, at one point considered the competitive architecture of fighting. Okay, and so that means they are a company that is a converter belt, meaning that it doesn't matter if one fighter or a couple of fighters decide to revolt. The reality is this. The reality is that fighters will always want to fight for the UFC, just like football players will always want to fight, will always want to play for the NFL. There is no CFL, there is no other football league out there. In fact, I don't even know any type of football league in American football other than the NFL, right? I don't know of any other league. So what happens? Every kid that goes to school to play football, whether in high school all the way through college, the main goal is the NFL. Speaking of American sports, right? The other topic that we're going to talk about is why the UFC is looking to push American stars in MMA. Now, the reason for that is because America needs stars, right? At one point, America was a dominating force in the world of MMA. Well, guess what? Just like baseball, at one point, baseball was the dominating factor of all of sports. I mean, America was a dominating factor of baseball when it came to that particular sport. Okay, so what that means is that they are no longer that. Why? Because they've exported baseball from America to Latin America to Japan, and then you often now see a lot of players in the MLB who are not American, right? But it's still an American sport. It's still an American dominated sport. It's still an American majority sport, and I'm talking about baseball. Well, why is that? Because Americans will always want to play baseball, and there's something lucrative that comes with playing baseball, whether it's playing for the Yankees or the Dodgers. There's history behind that. Now, here's the problem. The biggest problem is that it's not the same for MMA. they can't attract Americans the way that baseball can attract Americans, even though baseball is being overrun by Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and the Japanese, right? It's not in the same realm because there are still incentives. If you tell a kid that he's playing in the Little League, he goes to play in high school, then he goes to college or goes to the minor leagues and then goes to MLB, there's a path and also some lucrative rewards that come with that. Now, the problem with American mixed martial arts is that there isn't enough rewards. Well, why is that? Because quite frankly, it doesn't give you enough incentives. Think about it. What is the starting salary for the UFC? We're talking about 10 and 10. 10 to show up and 10 to win. $20,000 for a fight. And then some of that goes to taxes. Some of that goes to your corner. Some of that goes to X, Y, and Z. Some of that goes to sometimes travel expenses, dealing with your training camp, and maybe even getting to the fight. So it's not a lucrative opportunity, is it? So with that in mind, Connor Siller, BJJ says, I think it's 14 and 14. Okay, very interesting. 14 and 14, is it? Okay, well, still not enough, right? Not enough for a super athlete who can dribble a ball, can jump high, can lift heavy weights, can run a 40-yard dash in a professional time setting, right? It's not enough for them to be incentivized to go in there. So what is the UFC trying to do? They are trying to incentivize Americans, and not only that, push Americans, because quite frankly, Americans are getting pushed out of MMA. And for a lot of reasons. Look, 14 and 14, that salary that Connor Siller, BJJ says, that's pretty good. But at the same time, that's even better for somebody who is Brazilian, somebody who is Russian, somebody who comes from that part of the world where, you know what, that particular number gives you a lot of leeway, a lot of breathing room, right? It allows you to pay bills in Brazil. It allows you to live a little bit luxurious in Brazil, in the Philippines, or other places in the world that are a little bit more destitute in comparison to the United States. Whereas with Americans, the cost of living here is so expensive. How is it that you are going to even influence somebody like Gable Stevenson to come in here for less than $100,000? It's a very difficult situation to get to, and that's really what it comes down to. So let me read some of these comments before we get to the reaction, right? Dana is stupid for signing Conor Ben. Fighters might need to revolt. Mario Dillon says the government needs to regulate the UFC. I.e. the Ali Act. Well, guess what? Here's the thing, right? The government needs to regulate UFC. Who is the government right now? The government is Donald Trump. And who is Donald Trump affiliated with? Dana White. And then the Ellison family, obviously, who owns Paramount, is a huge Trump supporter. So there you go. Cool 600 says, do you believe in Sharia law? Well, here's the thing, right? You can't be a Muslim if you don't believe in Sharia law. And I think the reason why you're asking that is out of bad faith in ways to try and get a gotcha moment, right? Let me explain to you what Sharia law is. Number one, Sharia law means that I'm not going to charge you any interest. Sharia law means that I'm going to protect your rights as a Christian and as a Jew, of course, given that it is, let's say, a Muslim-dominated country. But yeah, I mean, you can't be a Muslim if you don't believe in Sharia law. So I don't know what your preface is of trying to get at that, or maybe you're just asking in good faith, or maybe you're asking for educational purposes. But either way, please elaborate and let me know what else you would like to know about Sharia law and why you asked that, and the context behind it, and what you are looking to get out of it, and if you're speaking about it in good faith or bad faith, or either way, we're here to discuss all of that. Connor Siller BJJ says, very good point considering the average yearly income in Brazil is like 10K. Well, there you go, right? The average income in Brazil is 10K a year, and you make that in one fight. You make more than that in one fight, actually, whether you win or you lose, right? So, you know, even the Brazilian fighters that are prelim fighters in Brazil that are making 10 out of 10, and let's say they just lost their fight at a pay-per-view or at a UFC fight night, that's pretty good for them to come home. Not for an American fighter who has to go and work, who has to go and find other jobs, has to find other means of income, which means what? That puts a lot of Americans in a very disadvantaged position. So as far as what the UFC is doing right now, they are doing a very good job of promoting Joe Pfeiffer. Obviously, Sean Strickland, they are more than likely going to give him a title shot against Khamzat, right? Considering the fact that there's nobody out there that really can challenge Khamzat in terms of promotional value. I mean, who do you really want to see him fight? Do you want to see him fight Imavov? I may have to agree with Sean Strickland, obviously not the terrorist comment that he made, but I may have to agree with the notion that, hey, you know what? Maybe the UFC doesn't want Imavov to fight, Khamzat, because fighting Khamzat would mean exactly what? Not really translating in pay-per-view numbers. But what exactly does it mean if, let's say, you were to have Khamzat fight Sean Strickland? What you're going to get out of that is drama. What you're going to get out of that is racially inflammatory statements, which, by the way, a lot of you love. Let's be honest about it. A lot of you guys love racist statements. A lot of you guys love racist people. Not necessarily that you're racist, but you love hearing racist stuff because, quite frankly, racist stuff is entertaining. And it doesn't mean that you have to be racist to love it or anything like that. And quite frankly, maybe some of you are closet racist and then you see somebody like Sean Strickland and you go, oh, wow, he's so base. He's saying things that I can't say because if I say it, I'm going to lose my job or I'm going to somehow fall into pits of cancellation. Victory says, I think racial stereotypes are great. They are, but not if they don't fit that person, right? And sometimes, here's the thing. All right, I'll meet you halfway on this, Marty, okay? Because I think you may have a point here, right? The majority of people are normies, okay? Very few people are exceptions to the rules. A lot of people love to say, well, I am the exception to the rule, or this, that, or the other, right? They love to say that. I remember Myron Gaines said something about, when he was talking about relationships, when he said that certain guys can get away with saying certain things, right? Depending on how handsome a guy is or how good looking he is, right? He can get away with certain things. And then he said that some guys out there truly believe that they are that one special person. They truly believe that they are that one special person that can get away with everything. The truth is, not everybody is that special snowflake. Right? So, in other words, everybody is a normie. The majority of people are normies. Maybe you are an exception to the rule. Maybe you're not. The majority of people are not. So, therefore, I could understand why racial stereotypes are somewhat needed or somewhat understandable, and sometimes even to the detriment of your own safety. Khabib Nurmagomedov, the fake Khabib Nurmagomedov, has a snowflake symbol right there. I don't know what that's about, but shout outs to the fake Khabib in the chat right now. So Connor Siller says, yeah, racial stereotypes are funny even when about my own race. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing about that, Connor. You as a white man, I think it's a lot easier for you to deal with stereotypes than a minority. I know this is going to be hard for a lot of, white guys or white nationalists out there to hear, but I'm being very honest. This is going to be very hard for you guys to hear. You ever heard, you know what? Speaking of which, you're Irish, right? I often see a meme that says, oh, well, we don't get offended because we're Irish, right? Well, what exactly does that mean? What that means is that the Irish have really cultivated themselves and assimilated themselves into white Anglo society, both of America and Britain, that to the point that really, if you say anything bad about the Irish, it doesn't offend them. Now, if you go back years ago when they had signs out in Britain and out in the United States that said there's no blacks or Irish or dogs allowed in this, place of business or whatever, right? Yeah, back in those days, maybe it was a little bit more volatile. But nowadays, let me put you guys on game, right? The Irish can't be offended because, quite frankly, they are part of a dominant group, which is white. You can't really offend a white person because, let's be honest, a white person all right, is probably one of the most privileged people on earth. And I'm sorry to say that. If you guys are offended by that, it's the truth, right? You guys know that I go and code switch, as Marty Miller says. Exactly, dude. I say that all the time. Connor Siller says, I'm Irish. My people were persecuted more than blacks, and we don't ask for reparations. Correct. But here's the thing. What happened was that the Irish have become highly assimilated into American culture, white American culture. And here's a classic example of this. Have you ever been to a police funeral? What do they play in a police funeral? They play bagpipes, even if that man is not of Irish descent. At one point, many Irishmen became cops, and then a generation of them became cops, and then their dads, their grandfathers, and this and that, they all became cops, right? This was an Irish thing that a lot of people do. So they now are heavily invested into law enforcement. And here's another thing. You look at all the generals in the Joint Chief of Staffs, right? A lot of them have Irish names, right? MacArthur or McGregor, Colonel Douglas McGregor, by the way, one of these, former generals that now is, a social media star or whatever, right? But there's a lot of Irish people that are in the CIA, a lot of Irish people that are in special forces, a lot of Irish people, yes, cops and firefighters, yes, cops and firefighters especially, right? They are all embedded into white society. He says, please don't speak the name of McGregor, Khabib says. No, this is a different McGregor. This is an American McGregor. This is the American general named Colonel Douglas McGregor, not Conor McGregor. This is not Conor McGregor or something like this, brother. No, no, no. This is not that. Khabib, that's my cousin. There it is, right? So Connor Billers, BJJ. Connor says, stereotypes for the Irish people, drunk gingers that like to fight, pretty spot on. And I'm just one of those ginger ones. So here's the thing, right? Is that really a bad stereotype? Let's be honest about it. Is that really a bad stereotype? Now look, here's another privileged group, or at least a group that's becoming privileged, my people. Arab people are becoming privileged. Like, you really can't say anything that's going to offend me on a racial matter. Let's think about this, right? What are you going to say to me that's so racially offensive? What are you going to call me, a terrorist? Let's be honest about this. This is controversial to say right now, and I could really, I could really get canceled from what I'm about to say right now, but here it goes, right? If you call me that, I would not be offended, because guess what? Maybe some of it is true. I will absolutely terrorize your whole entire life if you mess with me or you come across me in any kind of wrong way. And I've done it to people in the past. I've done it to people that have crossed me. I've done it to people that have tried to fight me. I've done it to people that have tried to humiliate me. I've done it to anybody that has tried to cross me in any kind of way. So in reality, is that really a bad stereotype? I will terrorize you and I will make your life a living hell if you cross me in any kind of way. Now, obviously, the worst part about that is if it becomes political and it becomes, religious extremism. Now, okay, that part right there, obviously, I can't sign off on that because that's highly illegal, right? And, obviously, getting into a street fight is illegal as well. Getting into conflicts is illegal as well. Getting into gang warfare is illegal as well, but not to the point where it is heavily scrutinized in the most extreme way. But I need you guys to think about that. What is so bad about that? Arabs make a lot of money. Arabs are, rich people. Arabs are pretty wealthy for the most part. I mean, yes, do we have people that are destitute, that are living in destitute situations in Palestine and Yemen? Yes, but if you look at the rest of the Arab world, there's plenty of wealth in Egypt. There's plenty of wealth in Saudi Arabia. There's plenty of wealth in Oman, in Qatar, and this and that. So, we're becoming the Irish in a way, right? We're becoming, the people that were once stereotyped as terrorists, as thugs, and as, hooligans, and now coming into the light of mainstream reality and mainstream advantages. And here's the thing, right? There are many Arabs that own a lot of things. Well, I mean, depending on where you're at least here in Sacramento, I could tell you that, being of a certain group of people, or being from a certain group of people has landed me certain jobs or landed me certain opportunities, right? How else did I get into the car business or learn about the car business or people putting me on the car business? That is all indicative of the fact that I live in a town like Sacramento that has a lot of Arabs that are in this business, a lot of Arabs that are into the jewelry business and things of that nature, right? So these are all opportunities that you would only get if you come from a certain group of people. Now, what about the Irish? Now, let's say if you're an Irishman or an American Irishman and you want to become a cop, very easy, you could become a cop. Think about this, right? To become a cop, they need to do background checks on you. So they find out you're an Irish American, your daddy was an Irish American, he was a cop, the daddy was a cop, granddaddy was a cop. Guess what? Now you have those advantages because now they trust you. Okay? They trust people that have generational lineage between them. And this is for the same reason why I trust people that have gang lineages with their dads that were in gangs, their fathers were in gangs, their grandfather. Like, there's a high susceptibility of me trusting people like this because guess what? They have a least amount of opportunity to snitch, because if they snitch, what happens? They can't go anywhere. All of their families live in the hood. They're stuck there. So therefore, I trust them for that reason, okay? So Connor Biller says, if there's one thing Arabs know how to do, it's to make money always hustling. Well, there you go. And part of that reason is because we are related to the Jews. You know what I mean? He says, yeah, gang members are extremely trustworthy people. I know you're saying that in jest and you're saying that in sarcasm, but I have to agree with you on that. Not all of them are. Okay, not all of them are. But what I'm saying is that if they come from a lineage of people that are about that, it is least likely that they are going to do that. It's the same thing on the other side of being law enforcement, right? If you are a generational cop, right? Your daddy was a cop, your grandfather was a cop, this, that, and the other. You have a less likely susceptibility of falling under the cracks or somehow becoming, you know what I mean, becoming a nuisance to the police force, right? Because your daddy is right there, right? He knows the chief. He talks to your sergeant. He talks to your training officer and things of that nature, right? So you have a least likely chance of messing up. So that's what I mean, right? But obviously, when you say that in sarcasm, when you say, yeah, gang members are extremely trustworthy people, obviously not all of them, right? And the ones that are not are usually the ones that don't come from that culture. You know, I mean, even me, right? You know, I certainly did not come from, you know, that type of culture, even though I know people that are like that. But you know, I mean, what makes me, you know, trustworthy in their eyes, that's something that I can't reveal on, you know, on an internet platform, but that's that. He says, did you see Paramount try and silence Sean Strickland? Pretty GAY, if you ask me. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I know that the UFC loves to pride themselves into this idea that they are all about, you know, free speech, right? Connor Siller says, don't speak of the rats. Haha, there it is, right? Okay, so going back to Ivan the Great's, you know, comment, right? There is no such thing as freedom of speech. Now, at one point, the UFC did allow you to say things, right? ESPN era, they allowed you to say things. Paramount era is a little bit different. Here's the thing. There is no freedom of speech. Try saying what it is that you want to say at your work. How will that work out? Will you get reprimanded? Will you get fired? Will you face some kind of punishment? There's some consequences involved to everything that you say. Freedom of speech. I need you guys to understand what freedom of speech really means. It means that you are allowed to criticize the government. That's what freedom of speech means. It doesn't mean that you're allowed to criticize me. If you see me in person and say something outlandish or say something off the wall, I'm going to punch you in your face and I'm going to violate you. You know, that's that. You know, there is no freedom of speech with me. I know that you guys love to think that, oh, you know, I'm all about freedom of speech or this and that. Yeah, try calling me a San N-I-double-G-A in person and see what happens to you. You think that I really, do you honestly think that I care about free speech that much? And I'm being transparent and honest with you. A lot of these guys love to say, yeah, I'm all about free speech, man. Yeah, you know, say what you say. And then here's Sean Strickland saying, you're a snowflake or this and that. Oh, you know, this is America. You can say whatever you want. Next thing you know, Drickus says, your daddy effed you. Your daddy violated you. I'm going to violate you like your daddy did to you. And then what did Sean Strickland do? He starts crying his eyeballs out. And I'm not saying that he's less of a man for crying over what Drickus du Plessis said. I'm just merely explaining to you guys that, you know what, freedom of speech is not real. It's absolutely not real. It is a government document that states if you don't like how something is done, you can go speak to your local Congress. You can go speak to your local municipal, counselors and try to get it sorted out. That's what that is, right? Freedom of speech means that you can criticize the president because you don't like the job that he's doing, and as a result, you want to speak about it, or you want to put it in a public platform where he can get an attention, or maybe even go through the bureaucratic ranks of, going through your Congress, your Senate, and through the chains of constitutional rights. Korn 1999, a very interesting name, by the way. One of my favorite bands growing up. Korn was awesome back in the days. Sean Strickland is a tool. Brain damage is real. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I think Sean Strickland rarely gets hit. Look, here's the thing about Sean Strickland, right? I would not allow, any kid to watch Sean Strickland. Certainly not mine, right? I would not allow them to watch what he says on a podcast or in a press conference. Now, as a fight, I would allow them to. You want to know why? Because that is the right thing to do. Allow yourself to not get hit. Okay, allow yourself to not get hit. That is the right thing to do. Now, saying all these outlandish things or this and that, I don't know about all that. Like, I'm good off that, right? Like, you don't need to follow anyone like that. Connor Siller says, but he mollywopped Fluffy. He did. He absolutely did. Ivan the Great PPV says, Sean is pretty edgy sometimes, but I think the fact he won made it even worse. Yeah, that's kind of the real aspects of MMA, right? In MMA, it is the winner who dictates the reality. Now, here's the thing, right? People have made a comment about the Conor McGregor and the Khabib fight back in 2018. They said something to the extent where, you know what? Even though Khabib won, it is Conor McGregor's truth that will remain forever, right? Because people said that Ali Abdelaziz is a terrorist, that Khabib was taking money from warlords or dictators and things of that nature, right? But by the end of the day, did you really care that Ali Abdelaziz is a snitch to the FBI? Do you really care that Khabib takes money from warlords and this and that? No, you don't. After October 2018, all you cared about was that Khabib won. He won the moral high ground, and that's how MMA works in a nutshell. Sean Strickland going into that fight week with Fluffy Hernandez wasn't exactly the most ideal type of fight week, where he said all of these things that caught attention to his direction, and it got to the point where, you know what? It could be a distraction, right? And it could backfire on him, because the minute that he loses to Fluffy, now they can turn it back around him. Oh, you see all these things that you said about Bad Bunny, things that you said about the Super Bowl, haha, you're wrong. Maybe he's right, but in the world of MMA, what's right and wrong is not measured by the metric data or the proof or the burden of proof, but rather the reality of winning or losing. That is the moral high ground in MMA. Connor Siller, BJJ, says, Sean iced him. Ivan the Great says, if he lost, Twitter would have been celebrating, but he won, so now they don't have anything to loathe about. I'm going to tell you something, right? I didn't do a live reaction for that fight, but I did do a live post reaction for that fight. And I'm telling you right now, if Sean Strickland lost and I made a live stream about that, guaranteed that the views would have been higher, because people would have came out in droves and said, haha, this is what happened to Sean Strickland. See what happens when you talk ish? You know what I mean? That's sort of what happens right there. Joel Montana says, Sean's definitely right about everything. Correct. And because if you think that he's right about I'm not saying correct on everything that you're saying, but, the fact that he won the moral high ground to say that I am correct. Because here's the thing, right? If me and you argued and I said, hey, 2 + 2 is 6, not 4, and you're adamant that 2 + 2 is 4, me and you are going to fight for it. I beat you up. 2 + 2 is 6. Now what? Am I right still, though? No, it just means that I won the fight. I beat the living heck out of you. Now I got the right to say that 2 + 2 is 6, even though it's wrong. You understand what I'm saying? So it kind of like that in that analogy, right? So Victory says, yeah, Sean looked great. I tried telling Kyrie Fluffy wouldn't be able to wrestle. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Listen, worth noted. Okay, worth noted. Listen, I don't mind being corrected. And, and not to sound like I'm backpedaling or anything like that, but I told you guys, I've had a conversation with Fluffy in 2012 where I asked him, hey, where did you wrestle in high school? He flat out told me I didn't wrestle in high school, and I should have really remembered that conversation. So I'm not, he says I pick wrong all the time. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I know. But it's fun to, pick at it after the fact, right? You know what I mean? That's why I don't hang my head. Like, this is the thing, right? I don't understand these content creators that hang their head over, oh, my predictions were right or this and that. It's a stupid thing to hang your head over. And this is why I don't gamble. Okay, because if you get it wrong, man, I'm telling you, you're going to cost a lot of people's money if you got your pick wrong, right? And that, and that's why I tell, man, listen, I hate to bring this up, but the homie of mine that loves to gamble when he shouldn't, right? When he asks me about, certain fights, I get really nervous, right? Because I'm like, listen, dude, I don't know about this fight, man. I don't know about this fight. Now, look, the Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards fight, I was so sure on that. I was like, dude, listen, yeah, you got this. I think you got this. He's like, are you sure, bruv? Are you sure? I'm like, yeah, man, yeah. Even though Leon Edwards was the Englishman in that fight, that was Bilal Muhammad's hometown because, Manchester City is a Muslim town. I think most of England is a Muslim town anyway. So, any Muslim American fighter can go in there and get, the support that they need. So, that's that. Ivan the Great says, that's why I actually don't mind fighters talking so much shit because they risk embarrassment. Well, there you go, right? There you go. That is the quintessential risk that you run if you were to get it wrong. Right, if you were to get it wrong and you looked really bad after the fact, right? Now imagine if Conor McGregor looked really bad against, against Jose Aldo had they fought, right? Or, I mean, they did fight, but it wasn't much of a fight, but you know what I mean, right? Now, what if it was, geared towards the side of Jose Aldo? What would have that looked like for Conor McGregor's whole entire legacy? It would have just looked like, this is a trash-talking Irishman that doesn't know anything that he's talking about. Connor Siller BJJ says, yeah, I locked Sean at 230 plus. Fluffy's grappling isn't that great, and I've even argued Sean is an even better grappler. You know what? That is what a lot of the people say in his gym, right? The people that train and work with Eric Nixick, this is what they say, that he has very underrated jiu-jitsu and underrated grappling. He just likes to bang it out. Connor Siller says, one of the best was James Vick versus Justin Gaethje, LOL. Oh, yeah, the knockout, you mean? Yeah, how he laid out James Vick, is that what you're talking about? All right, so with that in mind, let's get to this video by my homie Boxing Ego, right? My fellow Californian Boxing Ego. He is actually the one that exposed me to this news right here regarding Frank Warren versus Turki El-Sheikh. He says,
boxing outfit.
He says, I've heard Jocko give Strickland high praise too. When it comes to grappling, right? Because I know Jocko is really big on grappling. So yeah. All right, let's hear this.
Class is in session. Boom. Frank Warren embroiled in a potential $1 million, or excuse me, $1 billion, 1 million billion fulfillion dollars.
Ivan says, I hate that everything is political nowadays. I can't just enjoy the UFC in peace. I mean, people get hit in the head for a living. Of course, they're going to say some wild ish sometimes. And Victory says 100% on that. So look, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. MMA was and always will be a right-wing sport. And if not right-wing, conservative. I want you to think about this, right? The Muslim fighters are dominating the sport. They are conservative. Even the past athletes, such as Matt Hughes, they were conservative. It's a sport that has a conservative drive behind it. Let's be honest about that, right? And also, let's be honest about this too. MMA is a white majority dominated culture. You want to know why? Because the grappling aspect of it requires people to spend money for BJJ, and also it requires, especially in American wrestling culture, name a black wrestler in the world of wrestling that didn't grow up with white kids. Gable Stevenson, black man, wrestler. Did he grow up with white kids? He did. Jordan Burroughs, okay, black American wrestler, elite, Olympic gold medalist. Did he grow up with white kids? He did. Daniel Cormier, elite American wrestler, black American. Did he grow up with white kids? He did. That's why he likes professional wrestling. That's why he's a big professional wrestling fan. This is white entertainment. Now, I know it's international entertainment, but in all honesty, when it comes to American culture, it's white entertainment. So there you go. That is the reason behind it. So it will always be political on that aspect. Ivan the Great says, yeah, you can tell these people who are losing their mind over the things Sean said don't really watch the sport because they would know he'd been like that. Correct. So here's the thing, right? When you try and bring in a new audience, you have to re-explain everything to them. Okay? I want you to keep this in mind, right? When you bring in a new audience to MMA, you have to re-explain everything to them. And what exactly do I mean by that? By re-explaining everything to them. I mean it like this. You have to explain to them, hey, Dana White, he slapped his wife one time when they were in Cabo. Hey, John Jones, he's the greatest fighter in the world, but, you know, he does a little coke, he does a little this and that, you know, he gets a little crazy sometimes, you know, he gets away with not training in training camp and then winning fights such as the Alexander Gustafsson and the Dominic Reyes fight. Yeah, he gets away with these things. Oh yeah, and that guy over there, that shaved-headed white dude over there that talks with a raspy voice, but I think his name is Sean Strickland. Yeah, you know, he sort of says, you know, a few racist things. You have to re-explain this to people that have never watched MMA, right? And that's why when I told you guys, my cousin in Egypt who looks like Ariel Hawani, right? I'll bet you a lot of you guys would love for me to bring him in here, right? You know, just so you guys can roast him and call him Ariel Hawani and all this other stuff, right? But he's not going to get it. Like, maybe I could bring him in to talk about Middle Eastern politics and, you know, Middle Eastern geopolitics and things of that nature, global affairs. I could bring him in to talk about that. But if I brought him in to talk about Nina Drama, MMA Guru, you know, Armin Sarukian, who else? You know, Aiden Ross, all these characters, Nelk Boys, all these characters that are in the world of MMA, I mean, he's not going to get it. He's not going to understand it. You know, he's like, why do you care that this woman named Nina Drama is doing this newswork thing or whatever? You know what I mean? They won't get it. They don't understand it. It is not the type of world that they understand. They are not going to understand, you know, why Raja Jackson, okay, maybe they will, because that, no, actually, even that, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to understand Rampage Jackson. They're not going to understand Jake Shields. Any of these characters that you see in the world of MMA streaming, it's just not something that they can wrap their head around. Ivan the Great says, that's exactly what it is. They don't get it. Victory says, I can't wrap my head around getting offended by what someone said. Maybe you decide not to like them, but being outraged is wild. Yeah, man, I mean, look, I think certain people are built differently, and I'm not saying that, you know, to be discouraging to those people or any kind of way or try to put them in a low-hanging fruit type of situation, but I think different people are triggered by different things just based on their own personal experience. So Connor Siller says, yeah, like Guru said, they need to stop trying to ruin our sport. There you go, right? He says, Guru is Kyrie's nemesis. Yeah, listen, man. Uh, you know what? I don't mind that. I don't mind that because I think every good content creator needs some kind of enemy, right? And if you think about it, who would be a good enemy for MMA Guru, right? He's put it like this, right? Put it like this: MMA Guru, he's 6'3", 6'4". He's a big guy, which means that not a lot of people who are not trained at MMA are going to be able to handle him, right? So not a lot of guys that are under 6 feet tall are going to be able to handle MMA Guru because they're not trained. That's number one. Number two, whether I like MMA Guru or not, he's a very intelligent young man. There's no doubt about that. He's a very intelligent young man. There's a reason why he is able to come up with the kind of takes that he has, the type of creativity that he has. I'm not denying that in any kind of way. But who else can compete with him in those two realms? Right? So I think you guys have picked, the perfect nemesis. And if that's what you guys want me to do, then you can call me Orlando Anderson because I'm here on a Tupac killing mission. So, let's really try to get that cracking right there. You know what I mean? Shout out to Orlando Anderson, probably one of the most famous Crips in the world that doesn't have a record deal, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, forever he will be known as the guy that killed Tupac. So there it is. He says, right, Ivan, he's overdoing it on purpose. Ivan says, I may not agree with Sean on everything, but the fact people could say the things he does is what separated us. Yes. So, Jimmy Canada 101, what is that? What is that? What is that he said here? View. He says view. Oh, okay, view. Okay, I don't know what you mean by that, but I guess that's a correction right there. Okay, so all right, back to this MMA Guru. I'm sorry, this Frank Warren story right here.
Right? We talking Dr. Evil numbers. $8 billion legal dispute with Saudi Arabia's Sella, TKO, and Zuffa Boxing. Boom. You never know. That paper is 95% bull, but it's entertaining. And you won't let me read it. Now you entertain me. What's your bull? Huh? And not like I put it to your head, huh? $1 billion. I got to get my headset. We got to talk about it. Boxing is a trip. All right? From the top.
A $1 billion battle over the future of boxing is brewing, with a newly formed Zuffa at the center of it. British promoter Frank Warren is preparing to pursue legal action amid a dispute over his alleged exclusion from Zuffa Boxing, which is a partnership formed this past year between Saudi Arabia's Saleh and TKO Group, the parent company of the UFC and WWE. Advertisement. Saudi fight financier Turki El-Sheikh, UFC CEO Dana White and the parent company of the UFC, and WWE. Advertisement. Saudi fight financier Turki El-Sheikh, UFC CEO Dana White and WWE President Nick Khan are at the forefront of Zuffa Boxing's efforts. The promotional company has secured a reported $500 million, 5-year media rights deal with Paramount, and has used that to sign Conor Benn and Jayo Pitaya, with a host of boxing's top stars expected to follow. Uncrowned understands that an agreement between Zuffa and UK broadcast giants. A $1 billion battle over the future of boxing. According to the Telegraph, Warren's Queensberry is claiming that Sella and TKO breached separate.
All right, that's an interesting take right there, Ivan. You got my attention on that one, especially with the last part that you said there, right? And I'll read it out loud. Guru is insanely funny and knowledgeable about MMA. He said in many interviews, MMA is all that he has. So it will be pretty difficult to compete with him, but I honestly don't think he will be around forever. Okay, so that's interesting, right? Why do you not think he will be around forever? I mean, we're all not going to be around forever, but when somebody says that, they say that in a very immediate fashion, right? Like when you say not here forever, like are you saying 5 years, 10 years, or maybe just transition into something else, right? Yeah, explain what you mean by that. But I was pretty intrigued by what you said, especially with the last part.
Contracts they had signed with him and formed Zuffa Boxing without his involvement. TKO aims to take over the sport of boxing with Zuffa and gain a virtual monopoly, similar to its market share in MMA and professional wrestling. Queensberry says in September 2023, it signed an exclusive agreement with Sella to provide boxing services, which saw the company give Sella access to Queensberry's expertise as the pair looked to stage big-time fights. They worked together for the first time for the Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou bout in October 2023. Queensberry also claims it signed a contract with TKO, where TKO was allowed access to Queensberry's contract with CeeLo via its online data.
So, right here, let me tell you what's going on. They did the Tyson Fury and Ngannou fight. Tyson Fury really should have lost that fight. They did that fight together, right? And everything was fine and dandy. Sella, Frank Warren working together. Queensberry, also Frank Warren's company, UK boxing outfit, they are claiming that they signed a contract with TKO where TKO was allowed to access their contract info with Sella.
Okay, so Ivan says, I don't know how long, but he said before that he wants to dip at one point and go on to other ventures, like start his own MMA promotion or something along those lines. I don't know about MMA promotions. Maybe become a manager. I think that's what he said, right? You know, that could be the case, right? He would try to be, you know, a fight manager of some sort, right? Maybe work for Tom Aspinall or maybe his cousin Mick Parkin. By the way, I heard through the grapevine in England, because, you know, I'm pretty tied in with people in England, right? As much as I'm tied in with a lot of California people in California. There are some people that have told me that Mick Parkin is his cousin, right? The UFC heavyweight Mick Parkin is the cousin of MMA Guru. So there it is, breaking news right there. He says, "Don't you manage fighters, Kyrie? Not at a permanent base. Like, okay, if they had like a regional fight going on or something like that, I would, you know, talk to the promoters. All right, they should get this and that, and then I get this, like one of them things. You know what I mean? But not on a permanent contractual basis." He says that I feel like you'd be good at that. You know what? That's not something that I would shy away from. I'll tell you that, right? I'll tell you that much. That's something I would not shy away from, or something that I would, you know, say no to, especially if a fighter was to offer me, you know, some kind of deal, or, you know, ask for some sort of assistance. Absolutely. But so far, I've done that for, you know, just, you know, personal homies of mine, kind of like, you know, how you know, helped out Nate in a training capacity. Ivan the Great says he also said that he's supporting local up-and-coming fighters. Okay, so there you go, right? That's going to be MMA Guru's, you know, gateway into management. Victory says, do you think it's important for regional fighters to have a manager? Yes and no, right? If they do, it has to be at a basis where, all right, it's a family friend of theirs, right? Somebody that is out for their personal interest, because, you know, quite frankly, it's not a lot of money to really deal with. And so the opportunities for, let's say, a manager to, like, here's the thing, right? If you're an MMA manager, you are probably going to be more interested in dealing with UFC fighters, ONE FC fighters, Bellator, PFL fighters, not necessarily regional fighters, because their money isn't enough, and it wouldn't be enough for you to really put enough effort into it. So that's why I recommend for regional fighters to have people that they trust wholeheartedly to bring them in there, right? Not necessarily, you know, big time managers. Like, imagine you're a regional guy and you're asking Ali Abdelaziz to negotiate LFA deals for you, right? Or Fury Fighting FC deals for you, or whatever organizations there are out there for you, right? Like, it just doesn't seem like a lucrative time for Ali Abdelaziz when he has to worry about Khabib, you know, let's say doing, you know, construction projects in Thailand, which, by the way, is a real story that I'm telling you guys right now. So, you know, if you guys don't know yet, you will probably find out later on that, yes, Khabib is building a training facility in Thailand. So there you have it. Ivan the Great says, I would think he's pretty well connected in MMA scene at this point. Yes. A lot of fighters probably watch his videos. There you go. Yes, yes, that's his gateway into it, right? Obviously, his gateway was not necessarily through the gyms or anything like that. It was through his superstardom online regarding MMA content. Victory says, do managers get sponsorships and deals outside of fights? Well, that's primarily what your job is as a manager, right? How you can present your fighter to the world and how you can make them lucrative. That is the challenging part of being a manager, right? And especially if you're dealing with a guy that is not necessarily exuberant in his personality or very flamboyant or just very shy and introverted, you're going to have a much harder time. That is why they call Conor McGregor and people like that a promoter's dream. And right now, let's deal with the promoter's nightmare, which is Frank Warren trying to sue Saudi Arabia.
via its online data. Stay tuned to the end of the video. Things are starting to heat up. So with this type of information, like if you have access to somebody's records, then you're able to kind of reverse engineer, if you will, where if I have access to your books, your records, I know your whole operation. I know your whole outfit. I know how you get down or lay down, right? So armed with that type of data, you become very dangerous because now you can look at the legalese, you can get your lawyers, your attorneys, see what type of contracts Tyson Fury and these various fighters that you have are under, and then try to sink your claws. Oh, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's keep going.
Queensberry also claims it signed a contract with TKO, where TKO was allowed access to Queensberry's contract with CeeLo by its online data. It is being argued that TKO and SELA, with the benefit of privileged information, went behind Queensberry's back to ink a 5-year deal with each other, and in the process breached their individual agreements with the British promoter. Queensberry is reportedly seeking $1 billion for lost income that it argues the company would have made had its contracts been honored. Warren plans to take his case to the High Court if no resolution is reached. Queensberry has reportedly sent letters before action to CeeLo and TKO, detailing its intention to sue for breach of contract. Queensberry was the key player in Saudi Arabian boxing from September 2023 until this past summer. Rumors swirled in the boxing industry that a fallout between Queensberry and El-Sheikh had displaced them from their position, with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom jumping up the ladder. Although its future in Saudi Arabian boxing could also be doomed, with El-Sheikh helping to take one of Matchroom's biggest stars, Ben, over to Zuffa in recent days.
God dang, Joe Rogan. Boy, I tell you, what did Wesley Snipes say in Demolition Man? I swear, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. I'll keep that in mind.
Ivan says, I feel like the UFC had a lot more freedom under ESPN. Sean would have never been silenced on ESPN. This is true. Look, here's the thing, right? Anthony Joshua. I've complained about how Anthony Joshua was a closet Muslim for a long time, right? Like, I don't understand why Anthony Joshua has to be shy about being a Muslim. And then I realized that what he is trying to do is he is trying to be as inclusive as possible, right? He doesn't want to alienate non-Muslim fans. He doesn't want to alienate British fans that are not Muslim. He doesn't want to alienate anybody that does not think like him, right? The more popular that you are, and he knew that the way to be popular is to be as inclusive as possible. Paramount is a very popular streaming app, probably more than ESPN. So therefore, they have to protect their interest. And this is the reason why. And look, a lot of guys complain about, getting kicked out of YouTube. Like this one guy that I had beef with on the internet. He was an Irish guy, by the way. His name is Critical Eye MMA. He was a staunch white nationalist. Okay, he openly, promoted, ethnocentrism. He promoted, a white-only Ireland and things of that nature, right? And then he got kicked out of YouTube because he has low emotional intelligence and just drops N-bombs after N-bombs after N-bombs And, you know, before you know it, they just decided, you know what, we're going to terminate your channel, and then off he goes. So he can't make any money off of that. He can't even live in his own country of Dublin. He has to go live in Latin America, right? I mean, imagine that, a white nationalist having to live in Latin America because he can't afford to live in his own country of Dublin. You know what I mean? And that was all because he got kicked out of YouTube and, you know, couldn't pay his bills as a result of that. Ivan says, just quite ironic that South Park is on Paramount, but yeah, whatever, I guess. You know what? It's a little bit different when a cartoon character says it as opposed to a real person, right? Now, if Cartman is saying all these things about, you know, the Jews or, you know, any marginalized groups, X, Y, and Z, who are you going to blame to, right? I mean, you could blame the guy that is, let's say, you know, playing him, you know, the voice character of Cartman, but really, do you know who that is in a conventional minded setting, right? In, you know, in a common knowledge setting, do you know who the voice of Cartman is? Most of us don't, right? Just like Beavis and Butthead back in the days, you know that it was Mike Judge, but you don't see Mike Judge walking around or this, that, and the other, or really personifying being Beavis or Butthead, right? None of that, right? So a cartoon is a little bit easier to get away with as opposed to a real person. See, here's Sean Strickland. He's a real person. He's an influential person. He's a UFC fighter. He fights in the UFC. You see him in the flesh. And as a result of that, it's a little bit different than Cartman and South Park saying racist things, which I get it, right? Like, it's a very good comment that you made there, right? And let me read it again. He said, just quite ironic that South Park is on Paramount, but yeah, but whatever, I guess, you know? Goldfish says hi. Hello, Goldfish. How you doing, my man?
You know how to use 3 seashells, right? Y'all don't know how to use the 3 seashells. Bam. The article will be in the description. Let's talk about it. So, Queensberry is alleging, and before I get any deeper and really unpack, if you guys like what I'm doing for boxing, let the algorithm know. Takes you a few moments. My link me is in the description. Multiple ways to support the in the process of upping the quality and all of the equipment. You get what you get. So, Queensberry Promotions is suing pretty much Sella, TKO, Turki Sheikh, for upwards of $1 billion. A lot of lawsuits going on in the sport of boxing. And again, if you follow my movement, you'll be well informed of all of them because there's nobody doing it like me. I'm the best in the business and it's not even close. And I'm bringing you right there close to the action with reliable information. This is not clickbait. I don't have to trick you by putting some crazy title. What you see is what you get. What I'm talking about in the title is really what's happening in real life. So Floyd Mayweather suing Showtime, right? Espinoza, he won over $300 million. Currently going on, pending litigation. You got Oscar De La Hoya being sued by Virgil Ortiz, trying to get out of his contract, saying it's a breach of contract. You have Oscar De La Hoya countersuing Team Virgil Ortiz. That's already 3. You have people suing Floyd Mayweather. Again, I've made videos about all of these suits. People suing Floyd Mayweather, a jeweler, a Manhattan.
And that is why, as I'm sitting low in my chair right here, that is why Floyd Mayweather is going back to fighting, okay? He's going back to fight because he's got all of this lawsuits going on, and he needs to pay them. Ivan the Great says, I don't really watch boxing anymore. Only fighter I really watch now and then is Usyk, absolutely wizard in boxing. Oh, yeah, he is, man. He is. Who is he fighting next, right? It's not Wilder, because obviously Wilder is... yeah, who is Usyk going to fight next? That should be interesting. Maybe I'll get Caballel, I think, is the only one left. but we'll see.
Luxury, like, real estate owner said Floyd is back on the rent. Then magically, Mayweather Pacquiao Part 2 on Netflix gets announced. I made videos about that. And now, enter the fray. And I might have missed some of the lawsuits. It's like you ain't even trying to.
Okay, so I want to talk about the Floyd Money Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fight for a second, right? Which also kind of correlates also with Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. So why are these fights happening? The reason why these fights are happening is because right now there isn't a lot of stars in MMA or boxing. There's nobody that's really compelling for you to want to watch. Now, back in the days, if it was 2016, 10 years ago, I guarantee you a fight like Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano would not be on the radar of people, right? Because there was so many different matchups going on back in the day. The whole entire UFC division was stacked. Boxing was, kind of, subpar. But right now, I would say boxing is pretty rocking right now, right? It's just that they don't have star values. They are stacked for the hardcore fans, right? Look at the heavyweight division. You got Fabio Wardley. You got Moses Otama, Usyk, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder still in the mix. Weili Zhang. Who else? Herkovich. Right, this is a stacked heavyweight division in comparison to the UFC. Not a so much stacked division, but people are in yearning of all these old names because there's not really a lot going on. You got Gina Carano taking on Ronda Rousey, legendary names. You got Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, legendary names. And by the way, I would add unfinished business because for whatever reason, there were people out there that thought Manny Pacquiao won that fight. Ivan the Great says, kind of wild how people were discussing if Fury or Joshua is going to be this generation's best boxer, only for Usyk to come out of nowhere and school them both twice. Yes, because Usyk just did not have the star power behind him, right? He didn't have the promotional value of Great Britain's boxing, right? If you're a great British boxer, right, from Great Britain, you got Sky Sports, you got now DAZN, you got, what else channels do they have there? TNT, BT Sports, all of these things. You have an advantage as a British fighter with the type of media behind you, right? You got that guy, what's his name, Nick Pete and that other fella, I forgot his name, Nick Pete and Adam Carroll or Adam Cattrall. You got guys like that, the fight disciples that are promoting you, right? Because they are BT Sport, analysts. You got True Geordie. You got all types of media to cover you there, right? Usyk living in Ukraine, he didn't have any of that, unfortunately, and that's the reason why he came out of nowhere and and schooled them both to many people's surprise because he didn't have the right promotional value behind him.
Trying to compare body counts. Bow. What movie is that from? You ain't even trying to compare body counts. Can I eat the pickle? Huh? So now, in this long list of lawsuits, add Frank Warren. Now, there's been rumblings that Frank Warren in Turkey, something had happened.
Yes, just really goes to show you how great Usyk is. Did all that as basically a cruiserweight. Facts, man. And I'll tell you what else I like about that, right? What I'll tell you that I like about that is it shows what true martial arts is. Martial arts is where the smaller man with the right skill can beat the bigger man, and Usyk is embodying that in the ways that he's beating these giants.
And now it is coming to pass. Now the chickens have come home to roost, and Queensberry is trying to get money that they're saying had they not been backdoored, and I'm just using slang and paraphrasing because we already went through the actual article. They're saying they got backdoored. Sella had access to their contracts and personal data, thinking the partnership was cool, only to, in the end, be betrayed. This is what they're alleging to be betrayed. And all of a sudden, TKO gets announced, and they're like, yo, we got TKO boxing. Dana White's ahead of it. Where does Frank Warren fit into that? Where does Eddie Hearn fit into that? And once again, your boy Ego has been on point, delivering you. I try to tell you this was going to be problematic. Hold on, let me take this off. Hold on, let me get in my bag. Let me get in my zone. I'll be one taking my, like Jay-Z. I'll be like Hove with these videos. I don't need no teleprompter. Bow, look, I'm right here with it. I don't have no teleprompter. I don't have no cameraman. I do everything when it comes to my channel, from the thumbnail, from the rooter to the tutor. Oh, high quality audio, high quality video. I'm not popular. That later comes into play and the world gets to see it. So all I want, respect the channel, tell me I'm the best, leave me a comment, boxing game. Everyone get their talking points from Boxing Ego. I try to warn you guys of this. Remember who said, and I think it's important, let the record show who said what. Because while Boxing Ego, I say stuff that ain't popular in real time. People give me flack in real time. They're like, oh, no, Ego doesn't know what he's talking about. What did Chama do? What do you think now? This is what I try to tell you. While y'all was being buttered up by Turki Sheikh, and he was selling you a dream, the Saudis, they were putting in and bankrolling a lot of events, and you guys and a lot of content creators, let the record show this. You guys were like, the Saudis have saved boxing. Oh my gosh, they're taking over boxing. This is great. And you were allowing people to tell you things that talk nice to me, right? And tell you these things, my intentions. Remember when Turkey first came in, the whole game was like, I'm going to bridge the gap. Boxing has been the Wild West, the Wild Wild West, the Wild Wild West, right? It's been this wild.
So I'll tell you one of the problems that's going on with this, right? One of the biggest problems with TKO coming into boxing is they are going to step on some people's toes. They signed Conor Benn. They now signed Virgil Ortiz out of Golden Boy Promotions. What next? Maybe Usyk? I mean, Usyk is sort of an independent contractor, right? He's not really signed with Matchroom, not really signed with Frank Warren Promotions. He kind of has his own promotion going on, right? But you imagine this is going to be problematic for a lot of people. Ivan says, but that lighter man skill is real. These heavyweights like Joshua and Fury hasn't really seen any footwork or movement like that. Correct. And that is what basically Alexander Usyk uses to win these fights are footwork. But yeah, eventually this was going to cause a lot of problems because this is what the UFC likes to do. They love to step on people's toes. This is what the Saudis like to do. They love to step on people's toes. And now they're getting sued for $1 billion.
Wild Wild West, pure anarchy. And with the Saudis' money, we're going to come in and clean it up. This promoter A is going to work with promoter B amicably. The best is going to fight the best. And you guys bought it, right? You guys were like, yeah, I'm sold.
Yeah, Ivan the Great says, just goes to show how greedy these promoters are. Yep.
Oh, Turkey's putting on the best event. Sella, oh my gosh. And little old me on my channel, and I got the videos and the breadcrumbs on the channel to reveal and prove that I was saying this stuff. But me, I had certain doubts. I'm like, first of all, no business is coming in any industry, dropping a whole bunch of money and losing it and being cool with it, right? There has to be a grandiose, bigger picture here, right? Nobody's like Crawford Madrimov. I told you that fight was a loss leader. You had to overpay Crawford. You probably had to pay Madrimov probably a career high. You had Eminem. Ayo, way before my baby daughter Haley, I was harassed daily by this fat kid named D'Angelo Bailey. an eighth grader who acted obnoxious because it's bothered boxing. Like, bro, you had Eminem performing. You know, the Eminem don't even come out the house for real. So to get Marshall,
you know what? Listen, that is a good point, man. That is a good point. Eminem does not come out of the house. Okay, he does not step out of the house whatsoever. The Saudi money that they must have brought out for him to come out just to walk Terrence Crawford out must have been astronomical. But that is what they bring into the game. They really believe that they can own everybody into the game, right? This is just a certain arrogance that they grow over time, you know, due to the sheer confidence of the reality that, yes, they can bring in anybody they want. They can buy anybody they want. And they've been showing you that multiple times over and over again. So, Ivan says, but I do think Zuffa is good for boxing, finally making the fights these other promoters want to delay for some decades. Yes. You see, look, overall, right now, Zuffa boxing doesn't look like it's going to do much, right? You look at the Charles Martin and the Hefe Ajegbe fight, right? These guys, at least Charles Martin was a former world champion, yet he's fighting at the apex, at a boxing ring in Apex. The long-term vision is that the fans are going to side with Zuffa because they are making the fight that everybody wants. Whereas these other promotions, I don't know, man. I would not be surprised if they get put out of business, or by the very least make them join them, you know, because it's like one of those sayings, right? If you can't beat them, join them.
I show you Marshall, right? To get him to perform, he is gonna run you, and you had all this stuff, and you had the Showtime at the Apollo, Eminem show, and all this stuff. Cool, you for sure lost money. You had remember Crawford came out in an old classic car, Madrimov being drove out in a classic car. They had human billboards with these signs and all this stuff for Crawford and Madrimov. And I told you in real time, it is not a big fight like that, right? It's not bigger than Crawford and Canelo. It for sure wasn't bigger than Crawford versus Errol Spence. So what person, I don't care how much money you have, who's going to spend that type of money to lose it, right? But you guys bought it. Bringing fights to Saudi, doing this, working with Eddie Hearn, working with Frank Warren. And now fast forward to the future, now you are seeing the cracks. The windshield is starting to crack. You're starting to see a bigger play. Like, it's almost like a boxing match, right? Where somebody comes out super aggressive in the first round. That's nervous energy, and you got all this energy. As you settle in the fight, that stuff's going to calm down. And as you're getting punched by your opponent, right? So now I feel like
Ivan the Great says, but yeah, it's like Dana said, the other promoters treat every event like it's a going out of sale business. They've ruined so many great matchups because of greed. That's facts right there, man.
we're at the part of the game where Sella, TKO, Turkey, they've been in the game long enough, so they're starting to settle down, and now they're pulling back on the money in certain departments. Like Turkey, remember he told Eddie Hearn in Boots, we only want the big fights. We're not a charity. I'm not paying for Boots versus Lima, a tune-up fight where he can move up to 154. This is what Turkey said. So you start to see a different attitude. Before, they were just throwing money at it. For fights you know they were going to lose money on, but they were kind of just throwing money at it. Now it's making a whole lot more sense. What happened is this.
And listen, that is exactly what Zuffa Boxing is going to try and do, okay? That is exactly what they are going to try and do. Right now, they are just setting up these smaller fights, you know, Hefe Ajagba versus Charles Martin. You know that Charles Martin was going to get laid out by Hefe Ajagba because Hefe Ajagba is this prospect heavyweight, whereas Charles Martin, he's sort of like the washed-up former world champion. In fact, you know, at one point, man, people even doubted his status of being a world champion, right? And then after he got beat by Anthony Joshua, people started doubting the championship prowess of Anthony Joshua as well, saying that you didn't really beat a real champion. But anyways, they are sort of starting out right now, right? They're like, all right, we'll put money on the Terrence Crawford versus Madurov fight, right? We know that we're not going to make money off of that, but eventually we're going to want harder fights for these guys, right? So then they evolved into Canelo versus Crawford, right? And then they evolved into other things, right? Same thing with Hamza Shiraz, right? Hamza Shiraz is a project right now for, by the way, Hamza Shiraz, the homie of Zayn, by the way, okay? You know, the man that won Zayn $10,000 in one night with the Berlanga fight. They are trying to market Hamza Shiraz. They give him easy fights, but eventually you're going to see Hamza Shiraz in there with some real tough names, right? Like Charlo, names like maybe even Canelo, if Canelo is still around at that time, or whoever else is around in at 168 for Hamza Shiraz. So there's a plan that they have going on here. Let's see here. Victory says, won't just segregate fighters more. Now certain fights can't happen because they'll be signed to Zuffa. That's also true, right? You see, they at one point they're going to have to learn to negotiate. They're going to have to learn to play ball with other people, right? They can't just be an island all on their own, which is what Dana White tries to make it seem like they are doing. But he's just saying that as a performative power stance of letting everyone know, like, hey, look, we are the big dogs in boxing, but behind closed doors, you know that they are still going to try and work with these guys. Ivan the Great says, like, imagine if we had Joshua versus Fury at their peak. That is exactly what they are trying to do. And you know what? Not only are they trying to do that, they are trying to build the next Anthony Joshua and the next Tyson Fury. But when they are trying to build the next Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, they want to do it under their banner. And while they do it under their banner, they want to be able to pay them a little bit less and then give certain lucrative opportunities for guys like Conor Benn, once in a while, right? Especially big names that can generate numbers. Victory says, I'm completely ignorant when it comes to boxing for the most part. Well, we're here learning together. So, I mean, I know a little bit about boxing. Well, I could say I think I know a lot. But, not more than I know a lot about MMA, obviously. I know more about MMA than I do boxing, but I have a good understanding of boxing as well. Ivan the Great says, same brother, once you discover UFC, boxing becomes obsolete. I mean, hard to disagree with that, right? But by the end of the day, you also have to understand what boxing has over MMA is the classics, right? They have lineage classics behind them. So when you see these guys fight for a WBC belt, a WBA belt, the Ring magazine, there is a lineage behind that. And not only is there lineage behind it, there's history behind that. That's why when you look at the WBC belt, who do you see in there? You see a picture of Muhammad Ali on the belt, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez. He says, I know about the art of boxing, but not so much about the newer guys or how these promotions work. Ivan the Great says, Fury versus Joshua, after Fury fought Wilder for the third time, it could have genuinely been one of the biggest boxing fights of all time. Right, and then, like you said, guess who came in here to ruin all of that? Alexander Usyk. And now Alexander Usyk got rewarded of being put in a movie with The Rock playing a Ukrainian MMA fighter in the 90s that beat up Mark Kerr. So there you go.
Hey, what they say, all's fair in love and war. I'm just telling you my personal opinion. Turkey came in, Sella came in with a vision, or maybe somewhere along the line the vision changed. I don't know how that played out. But it appears to me that either they knew this was the ultimate goal or this became the goal. But either way, that's semantic. It don't really matter when it changed. Somewhere along the line, you got all these promoters, Oscar De La Hoya Eddie Hearn, Queensberry Promotions, and Frank Warren. You were working with them, and you got them really accustomed to your money. Like, they thought they didn't have to do their job no more, right? Turki became the financier, and he was
Yeah, that was a big mistake. Big mistake right there, right? They got spoiled and they thought they didn't have to do anything anymore. Big mistake.
throwing money at it. So Eddie Hearn, he get to kick up his feet and lamp a little bit. Frank Warren, man, I don't even have to burn through my own pockets because Tyson Fury and Ngannou, sellers paying for it. Eddie Hearn's like, this fight and this fight, Better Biv and Bevel or whatever, they are paying for it. And what happened is the promoters got really reliant, those promoters. But notice PBC and Top Rank, the American outfits, they weren't really in the equation like Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn particularly. They would occasionally send some people, Carlos Adames, or send El Rayo at the time, or Pitbull Cruz, David Morrell. But they weren't making up the whole cards, right? And this is how it works. You get someone used to needing you. And I'm not even being funny, but a lot of DV situations start like this, where a guy who's manipulative and who has that type of a personality, he'll get the girl and then he'll separate her from her friends, separate her from her family, and get her really dependent on him. You know what I mean? Maybe he's like, let's not go to your family's house for Thanksgiving. Your friends are bad influence. You shouldn't hang out with them, right? So now she's isolated, right? Then what if the dude's like, you know what? I make enough money. You should quit your job.
I don't agree with that. Not so much isolated, more like protected. But okay, I guess that's the Western view of dating. So
She quits her job.
he says Usyk was in the Smashing Machine. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Victory. He played the guy that beat Mark Kerr. In Japan. So yeah, he was in that movie. Ivan the Great says that's probably the only thing boxing has over the UFC. Its long cultural history. Yes, and that is the reason why Conor Benn is making more money than Sean O'Malley to the complaint of Sean O'Malley.
Job. Now she has no identity outside of the relationship. Minimal family contact, minimal friend contact. Now she has no income of her own. So if the dude is like Ike Turner, on some crazy stuff, now the girl is wholly and fully dependent on him, right? So now when the mask slips and the guy shows his true colors, the girl's in a super volatile and vulnerable position because she went up here and gave up everything for the relationship to cater to it. And then the dude flipped out and started showing more of who he really is. And now she's in a tight spot. That's kind of what I see here. Turki and Sella used Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren primarily, learned the business a bit, seen how they worked, right? Seen how they were operating. And then, for whatever reason, kind of leapfrogged. Then you notice Turki was putting out comments like, I want to do a show in Alcatraz, and we can leave the promoters at the island, in the prison. This is not my opinion. Turki really said that. He said, we can leave the promoters on the island. That's when it was first announced that he was working with Dana White. When people tell you...
Yeah, listen, you do not want the Saudis to leave you in any kind of prison, whether that's an American prison or Alcatraz. The Saudis are the last people you would want to be in prison for. Okay.
who they are, you got to believe them. Boom. Google. Saudi Arabia's
just like what Dana White said, right, about Francis Ngannou. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. That's Dana White right there.
General Chairman Turki jokingly suggested he might, quote, leave some promoters on Alcatraz Island. But Now, in hindsight, is it really a joke? Because now it looks like it's beef, right? Conor Ben was with Eddie Hearn for 10 years. 10 years. Eddie Hearn's British. Conor Ben is British. The world thought they had a good relationship and partnership and friendship.
And not just that, Conor Ben, his dad, Nigel Ben, okay, had a tremendous relationship with Eddie Hearn's dad, Barry Hearn, okay? They were tight. So it's more than just, okay, you know, they're fellow countrymen, they're, you know, fellow Brits, man, they were family. And this is how they got repaid. So it's a cold game, bro. It's a cold game. That's why, you know, be out for you. You know what I mean? And no one else, especially in the world of combat sports. They are only out for themselves and nobody else. And that's indicative of everything that we had just noticed with the Conor Ben and the Dana White and Eddie Hearn situation.
Surely, if Conor Ben's contract ended, that he was going to re-sign with Eddie Hearn, like Anthony Joshua or whoever else, right? Remember, Joshua was like, I have a lifetime contract with Matchroom, meaning I'm going to finish my career.
Yeah, that is cold, man. He said that he had a lifetime contract with Eddie Hearn. He must really trust Eddie Hearn, or they have some kind of relationship that we just don't really know about. But then again, we thought that Conor Ben and Eddie had that relationship that we don't really know about. And, you know, that doesn't seem to be the case, is it?
With him. But guess what? Now Conor Ben's with Dana White. The whole boxing world was surprised, like, huh? Oh, he left Eddie? And Eddie's doing these melancholy videos. Oh, man, I'm absolutely gutted, mate. You know, I'm devastated. You know what I mean? Now he devastated. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. Trust nobody. This is why you shouldn't get too comfortable. You know what I mean? And as far as the Frank...
Facts right there. Yeah, you definitely should not get too comfortable. That is true.
Warren case, I don't know how to play out. I'm not a judge. I'm not the high court. And it's not my money. So it don't affect me. But it appears like some craziness is going on in boxing where the Saudis came in waving the money, making the promoters feel like, you know, ultimately they can rely on that. And then now they turned off that faucet and then they got the Paramount deal and turned on the faucet for someone completely different. Now I'm starting to...
Ivan says Usyk now might have the resume or legacy, but I genuinely think in terms of skill, he is a top 3 heavyweight box of all time, but people won't admit that. I think, you know what, for the type of skill levels that a lot of these adversaries of his have, right, and the name notoriety he has, look, he beat Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and the list goes on. Derek Chisora, he also beat, right, that's a top heavyweight. Well, I mean, you could say that he's a gatekeeper, but, you know, he actually gave Usyk his hardest fight. Now, that was probably very early in Usyk's heavyweight run after he vacated the cruiserweight belt and tried out for the heavyweight belt. But, yeah, man, Usyk, I think Usyk's legacy is intact, in my opinion. I honestly do. I think that he does have an intact legacy, and as a result of that, I think you could put him up there as the top. You know what? I'll go as far as to say that he is the #1 heavyweight of all time. I'll say that right now. Usyk, #1 heavyweight of all time. I dare anybody to debate me on that. And I would even put him above Muhammad Ali, only because Muhammad Ali stayed a little too long. And we're not talking about cultural significance that Muhammad Ali brought, right? We're just talking about boxing. I put Usyk on top of that. And you're talking to a guy that sides with Russia over Ukraine in that war, okay? So let's put it like that, all right? He said that he's like a heavyweight Lomachenko. He is. He says he might not have Muhammad Ali's legacy, but he's a better boxer without a doubt. Yes, that is, yes, I will say that, right? And I know a lot of Muslims are probably not going to like to hear that But, you know, to be honest with you, a lot of Muslims don't understand the fight game quite like I do. So, you know, let's just be honest about that as well.
See, again, the chips in the windshield is looking like a big problem. And
you have it listened, you type it in, and then you go digging.
You literally just drag it in, and it'll be an audio clip.
from what Frank Warren is saying, allegedly, Turki and them, Sella, had access to his books and got to understand the ropes and use that information, and then probably took people over to Zuffa boxing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a cold game, yo. It's a cold game, dog. They like really use you, seen how you were running shop, and then now they're replacing.
That's called intel gathering, okay? That is called intel gathering. Look, who was here when I did the Turki El-Sheikh breakdown, when I gave the biography of Turki El-Sheikh? Who remembers that? Marty, do you remember when I did the breakdown of Turki El-Sheikh, his background? I read to you guys his entire background, right? What was his background? Turki El-Sheikh's background was military intelligence. Okay, in other words, he was a spy. In other words, he is the CIA of Saudi Arabia. So what do you think they did when they went into the boxing game? They used those skills of espionage. They looked in the books of Frank Warren. They looked in the books of Eddie Hearn. They accessed all of their information. And I wouldn't doubt if they, let's say, sent Saudi agents to go and infiltrate their offices, right? They had some guys go in Eddie Hearn's office in Essex County in England, and you know, read their books, right? Read what was going on. They're like, oh, okay, he's making this much, so this is what we're going to offer him. Information is power, and they absolutely used it to their advantage, I must say. Ivan the Great says, I genuinely think Usyk would jab prime Mike Tyson's face off. You know what? I agree with you, right? Usyk is just another example of Holyfield, right? He is a modern version of Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield was a very small heavyweight, if you remember, former cruiserweight, moving up to heavyweight, right? That's what he is. That's what he is. He is a modern interpretation of Holyfield, prime Holyfield at best.
I mean, look, here's boxing scene, and I will link these in the description. I tried to tell y'all didn't want to believe boxing ego. I told you something is like, I don't know. Frank Warren in Queensberry to sue TKO and Sella for $1 billion. So it's being reported everywhere. The battle between boxing's old guard and the new kids on the block could be going legal. According to a report in the Telegraph, Frank Warren preparing a lawsuit concerned with the partnership of Saudi Arabia, Sella, and TKO, Zuffa Boxing, blah, blah, blah. So you got people, again, now the true color, the mask is officially slipped. Now you're seeing true colors. You have TKO and Zuffa. Remember, Dana White was like, man, we're going to take over. They're trying to monopolize the game. Make it
babies. He said it's like taking a candy from a baby. He didn't say that, but he just said it's like dealing with babies. But he definitely had Eddie Hearn crying like a baby as a result of it.
Amendments to the Muhammad Ali Act, right? Switch that all up. Take people's fighters. Remember, Jai Opataya was with Eddie Hearn. Now he's with Zuffa. You have a guy like Conor Ben, which was shocking to some. He was with Eddie Hearn for 10 years. Now he with Zuffa, and he's like, hey, they're offering me 15, 20 mil reportedly. I couldn't pass that up, you know? And then there's debates on if Eddie Hearn was given an opportunity to match it or not. And Frank Warren, another person that was reliant, he's had Tyson Fury this whole time, right? Did 2 Usyk fights. Everything was seemingly good with Sella and Frank Warren. Now Tyson Fury comes out of retirement, and he's fighting on Netflix. Who's putting that on? Sounds a little bit shaky to me. Sounds shaky, baby. So was Tyson Fury instructed to, quote unquote, retire? So I don't know. I don't know his contract, but sometimes
Ooh, listen, that is a good point right there. That is absolutely a good point. And look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Tyson Fury is a gypsy. He's not loyal to anybody, okay? And when it comes to morality and, like, look, he was accused of cheating, right? Accused of, doing all sorts of things from Deontay Wilder. And we know that Deontay Wilder sounds like a crazy man. He sounds like, a bitter black man, or, however they want to put it. But where there's smoke, there's fire, right? That dude is a tricky, dodgy type of dude. I'm talking about Tyson Fury, and I wouldn't put it past him to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to retire, so this way I can get out of my contract. It's not like the UFC. The UFC, you can retire, and then they got you at a, what do you call it? At a freeze contract. They just freeze your contract, and then when you come back, you decide to come back, it's going to be with the UFC and no one else, right? But now he's fighting with Netflix, so, something's going on there. Victory says Wilder also said he didn't perform well because of his walkout outfit was too heavy. Yeah, I mean, that right there, you know what, man, listen, that's a dumb thing to say. That's a dumb thing to say. I'm going to tell you why it's a dumb thing to say. I've been in sparring sessions, and I know it's sparring, not the real actual fight, but I've been in sparring sessions where I had a heavy weightlifting session and then went to sparring, right? Maybe not the best idea because you kind of want to be loose. You don't want to be tight. You don't want, but he wasn't lifting weights. He was just carrying a whole bunch of weight on him to the ring, and it wasn't even that long.
If you hold the label of...
Because if you think about it, how long are entrances? At most, maybe like 5 minutes, maybe even 7 if you got a band playing for you. But that's about it.
one more album or something, there might be a period where if you're inactive for 2 years, then you don't owe them anymore. I don't know. It depends on the contract. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't seen Tyson Fury's contract, but I do know of situations where certain loopholes do exist and people exploit them, right? So maybe Tyson Fury was told, hey, you lost 2 fights to Usyk, disappear for a while, and then come back, and then we'll holler at you. And then I don't even know if Tyson Fury is with Queensberry.
Ivan the Great says Wilder got his ass whooped. No two ways about it. I don't think the things Wilder was complaining about would have made a difference anyhow. For real, I think there's some coping mechanisms there, right? We use that term a lot, especially on the Monday after a fight event, right? Coping mechanisms, right? But this is a classic case of, coping, 101. It's, yeah, you're right, Marty Miller. It's just him coping with his loss. Because you got to remember, right, Deontay Wilder was undefeated prior to that fight. And so the illusion of his invincibility got tested. And as a result, he got to find out that he wasn't as invincible as he thought he would be. Ryan Bean says no one taught him to lose right. Yes, that is a good point. No one had taught him to lose right. And, when you're 40-0 going into your career like that, and he was favorite to win that fight. Did you know that? Because remember, Tyson Fury is coming off of that mental health, crisis he had going on. And then he was just coming back. And, yeah, Wilder was knocking everybody out. So, yeah, man. He was absolutely the favorite going into that fight, and and Tyson Fury showed otherwise.
Anymore. So how's that work? Before the Saudis got involved and TKO was formed and Dana White got into boxing, Frank Warren had Tyson Fury. Now all of a sudden, I haven't heard Frank Warren promote Tyson Fury versus that Game of Thrones looking dude on Netflix. So, I don't know what went on there. Y'all tell me. But it is looking kind of suspect. Conor Ben, long time with Eddie Hearn, now he not. Tyson Fury, I don't know. What's his situation? Because he was fighting on his own. How he fighting on Netflix now? And then now we're hearing lawsuits and whatnot. There's reports that other people like Shakur Stevenson are being looked at for Zuffa. So, yeah, man.
Ooh! Shakur Stevenson to Zuffa. Look, that is a possibility. That is an absolute possibility. Shakur Stevenson. Okay, Ivan the Great says his power brought him to the show. Wilder was never a good boxer, just a great puncher. But yeah, kind of sad. That's why. Okay, man, that is so true. That is so true, bro. That is so true. He had the athletic. So here's the thing, right? When it comes to fighting, in the early stages, in the regional scenes, you can get away with athleticism. If you have athleticism, you will beat a lot of people. There's no doubt about it. You will beat a lot of people. But at the highest level, you need skills. Skills pays the bills at the highest level. And Deontay Wilder just did not work on that up until he had to. So Ivan the Great says that we never saw Wilder versus Joshua or Wilder versus Usyk. Still would have been interesting to see. Well, now maybe they might do that. Okay, going back to the Shakur Stevenson thing that they were talking about, right? That is a possibility. You know who Shakur Stevenson is great friends with, right? Who was in his corner during the Teofimo Lopez fight? Not in his corner, but who was ringside? Terrence Crawford. Who is Terrence Crawford signed with? Dana White and TKO and the Saudis. So is it possible that they can take Shakur Stevenson? Of course, easily. They're going to take Shakur Stevenson.
I try to warn y'all. Y'all thought it was sweet, and it's partly these promoters' fault too, because
Victory says sometimes his technique looks awful, like he's an amateur. Correct. Like he's a Derek Lewis. All right, is that a good comparison? Right, not because of. I'm not comparing. By the way, guys, listen. I'm not comparing Derek Lewis and Deontay Wilder for the obvious reasons. Okay, it's a little more skin deeper than that. Okay, but if you look at them, right, from an MMA and a boxing comparative perspective, they are very much similar, right? Derek Lewis just doesn't have the most beautiful technique, but he'll knock you out, bro. And just like Deontay Wilder doesn't have the best looking, technique, but he'll knock you out as well. And they're both Southern boys. Is that the only comparison that they have? They're both Southern boys from Southern states. They both have knockout power, but horrible technique. What else am I missing? Let me know what else I'm missing on the chat if I'm missing any, comparisons between them. Derek would do things that look like he's never had any training, LOL. Yeah, and then he lies about saying, I'll only train 30 minutes a day. I'll really be up in there training with his Rick Ross voice. Oh! His little Rick Ross voice. Derek Lewis.
they thought the money was just going to be free flowing, like there wasn't a bigger picture for the Saudis. And they were just like, oh, my job's easy now. I just got to promote the show and I don't have to worry about losing my money. But see, like boxing ego, I can't speak for nobody else. For me, this is why I don't depend on people. Because, imagine if my channel was formed based on somebody else. That means somehow, some way, I have to rely on them. Every piece of equipment that I've ever bought on my channel came from my own blood, sweat, and tears. True story.
There it is. You said it, I didn't, okay? Just so you know.
Like this camera quality you see, that's me. Nobody bought anything. Nobody bought any mic for me. Nobody bought my camera. Nobody bought a tripod. Nobody bought these lights. It was me. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't change it for anything because for me, I like the freedom that allows me. When you rely on somebody, then you're kind of beholden to their rules and how they get down, and you don't really have a say.
Ivan the Great says, same with Devin Haney as well. Don't know how he has the following he has, jabs his way to a decision 90% of the time. Yeah, I just think that's what it is, right? He just relied upon skills. And look, Devin Haney is a very skilled fighter, and I'm going to tell you why, right? So his dad, Bill Haney, was the former manager of legendary Bay Area rapper Too Short, right? And, well, his son got into boxing, and instead of going into the amateurs, Devin Haney decided, you know what? Instead of taking the amateur Olympic route, he did have some amateur background, right? That is indicative of him having those multiple fights with Ryan Garcia. They decided at a very young age, hey, let's take you down to Mexico and have you fight as a pro at 16 years old. He went down to the border, got that experience, got that pro experience, and I think that is what made him very much skillful enough to make it into the world stage and the world level. So, all right, listen. This is what I wanted to say to preface this, right? I'm about to head out soon, so I just wanted to, sort of leave with a little bit of an outro monologue regarding this particular, story, right? So, okay, what it seems to me is that the Saudis were using a lot of their intelligence services to try and obtain information on Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, just so they can try and take their fighters from them, right? Learning how much money they made and then how they can negotiate to, give them the best, bid for the negotiations that they have going on, right? So they did that, but I think I might have to agree with Boxing Ego and what he said here. He said that you can't depend upon anybody, and he's absolutely right about that. The minute that you depend on anybody, you are confined to their rules. You are confined to whatever it is that they want you to do. And this kind of goes into the same subject that we talk about with MMA journalists and MMA content creators, right? What is the difference between Nina Drama versus MMA Guru, Nina Drama versus Ariel Hawani, the Nelk Boys versus Luke Thomas? What is the difference? The difference is that the Nelk Boys and Nina Drama are highly dependent upon their relationship with the UFC. So they cannot say anything that is outrageous or out of line or something that is undesirable to the UFC's wishes, because guess what? They will not get the platform that they get, at least so much more with Nina Drama, because the Nelk Boys, they don't really need the UFC. It's a sort of a bonus that the UFC asked them to be a side promoter, to be the promoter of their fight week. Let's say they invite fighters to go in their podcasts and things of that nature, right? But overall, they are dependent on the UFC. Luke Thomas, Ariel Hawani, MMA Guru, and guys like myself, we're not dependent upon, any league, any fighter, or anyone like that, right? We are dependent upon, ourselves and what we do and what we like to do and what we like to say. No one censors us. But if you are a person that got put on by someone, they are going to need you to do their bidding, because that is the reason why they pay you. That is the reason why they are giving you all of this money. And you got to understand, guys, not all money is free, right? Not all free money is free money is the best way to put it. Victory says, right, boxing can be extremely boring to me because of that style. Correct. Victory says, can't stand when guys clinch the whole fight either. Similar things happen in MMA, but not so often. Well, in MMA, if you clinch, there's an obvious reality to how it's going to end, how it's going to go, and where it's going to be placed, right? Obviously, there's going to be elbows involved. There's going to be knees involved. Not so much with boxing. They just hold on and wait for the referee to pull them off, and that's really all there is to it. So, with that in mind, okay, so last thing that I want to say, yes, I think that the UFC absolutely needs more American stars, right? At one point, this was an American sport, but like baseball, baseball was an American sport, America's pastime, as they say, but now they had imported it to Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Japan, and as a result, their players became dominant as a result of that. Well, they still have American players because it is still a lucrative opportunity to become a baseball player. What the UFC needs to do in order to have American fighters is the following. They need to pay them more because of the cost of living that is going on in the United States. And with that in mind, guys, that is all that I have for this one right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will leave it off right here at exactly the 2-hour mark. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one, inshallah. And Ta says, just rewatch the Kevin Randleman versus Last Emperor Fedor and Kevin were both just tanks. These fights now are more technically. I would agree with that. Yes, a lot more technical, and as a result of that, it's a lot more. What do you call it? A lot more boring, at least to the casual fans' eyes. But on any regard, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the